Okay, I am live now. It is the 30th of August 2025, 30 August 2025, and it is a Saturday morning about 9:23 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm doing a live stream, but it is in private mode, and I probably will put this in public mode, but I just don't want any distractions in this stream here. So if anybody pops in here, it must be that I hooked this up wrong. But so far, I don't see anybody popping in the stream, so it means that there's nobody here. So I want to talk about this. The name of this is what the demographic situation ultimately means. And I was listening to a podcast I had downloaded one time, and they were talking about celebrities and how they're dumpster diving and things of that nature. And yeah, dumpster diving, you're going to start seeing now. Like I've talked about this demographic situation. If you haven't heard my channel, I put my face out there. I put my name and, my name out there. I've been doing this a while. It's basically True Forced Loneliness, explains the concept of what men go through year after year. I get it. So, anyways, long story short, hold on a second here. Okay, I got good access here on the internet. So, True Force Loneliness, or TFL for short, was created by Bill Greathouse, and it describes a problem where men go year after year after year without finding any love, romance, sex. Not sex. He doesn't like to use that, but just somebody in your life, a partner. Um, so now, what I have been pushed on, I have pushed this on. I no longer really believe we can stick with these ideas that money and looks really are the determining factors. I think the number one issue on the top of the pyramid today is this issue of demographics, and namely speaking, that there are way more single men competing for single women than there's ever been in the history of probably civilization. Now, I say in civilization, meaning that yes, there were civilizations that had these problems too, and there were optional things for these men to do. I mean, there was wars, there was, I think that the default position throughout history, with the exception of a couple Goldilocks periods, has always been this: that excess males have always dominated the landscape. And in order to get rid of these excess males, we'll send them off to war, and we'll hoard the women for ourselves. And I really do think that this may have had a lot to do with even the Roman Empire all the way through the present day. And what we do is occasionally have these things called revolutions, like the French Revolution, where right after these revolutions happen, or these big wars like the Napoleonic Wars, which killed hundreds of thousands of Frenchmen and people associated with the French fighting in their army. You have these excess men that are murdered. They are murdered. I mean, war is murder, in my opinion. These men die in war, and as a result of this, you have these excess females now, which means the sexual tension is intensified for the women. Now they're more aggressive, and when society allows women to be the aggressors, especially if they outnumber the men, you will see sexual perversion like you've never seen before. Prostitution, you'll see women just. I mean, you saw this after World War One. The Civil War didn't do the job. The Civil War, there was still an excess male problem even after the Civil War, the American Civil War. So, anyways, I was just listening to this guy, and he's talking about all these different celebrities, how they're dumpster diving, and it never ceases to amaze me how easy it is for these women to find partners. Like there are so many ex-porn stars that have done this. Like these girls have gone over to Jesus and become born-again Christians, and like at least a half a dozen to a dozen of them, and like they're married within them. They're married to some pastor, or they're married to some really devotedly religious guy, or some guy that's a virgin. And I've seen this like happen a dozen times with these ex-porn stars when you hear their stories on YouTube or whatever. And it got me to thinking that like it is getting so bad out there, and nobody's talking about this demographics issue. Nobody's talking about it at all. Everyone's ignoring it. They're saying it's not a problem. It's it's you that's got the problem, and everybody else seems to be doing very well but you. But in reality, it's a dumpster diving situation where you have all these excess men jumping into the dumpster, and they're they're just it's just insane. So just be prepared to accept what you have coming. You're going to hear it and you're going to say, Steve told you so. And none of your lives are going to get any better listening to a bunch of get rich quick scheme like style gurus like Andrew Tate, people like what's his name, Gaines, Martin Gaines, or there's a couple of these black guys that have gone out there and done the whole just be cool, bro type of. And none of these guys really have the answer, and they don't have the answer because they failed to realize that when you have a demographic shift of like 5 men to 1 woman, which is realistic, and it's very convoluted what's happening with the immigration problem and with all the excess men that they keep bringing into the country to do cheap labor that's going on in Canada and the United States and Great Britain. You bring in all these excess males. And the result is all these other social dilemma. And I heard one person recently saying, like, do you think the demographics play a role in it? And they said, don't underestimate feminism. Well, feminism would not have been as powerful had it not been for the excess male problem, because men will, if the women start a trend, the men will follow. Women are the leaders in everything, basically. And when it comes to relationships, and they are the ones that determine whether you're going to procreate or not. And as sad as it is, but in a dying situation like this, where you have excess men, you're going to find yourself getting chosen less and less and less. I maintain strongly that when you make the argument, oh no, that's not true, there's just as many men out there as women, or women as men. You know, there's just as many able-bodied women who are single and looking for a man as there are able-bodied single men looking for a woman. And it's 50-50. And it's just that women have been brainwashed with feminism, yada, yada, yada. I've heard this before. But the real reason is demographics. And it starts with the baby boomer men in the 1980s and 90s dipping, double, triple, quadruple dipping into the pool of ever so younger women. Then you have to also look, because you remember British boomers and American boomers all had one thing in common. They came from big families. Almost all of them had huge families, like 12 kids, 10 kids, 8 kids, 4 kids. I mean, four would be the bare minimum. Like the typical American or British family in the 50s had a minimum, or Irish family, are you kidding me? Minimum of 4 kids. I'm probably like, for the Irish, probably have 10 kids, 12 kids. And yeah, I mean, like, you got 14. There's a guy in the Cleveland area. He was an auditor. I think his name was Tim Hagen. He was from the Youngstown area. He was married to a famous celebrity here. Tim Hagen was one of 14 kids. So your dad's a blue collar Irish. I don't know what his dad did for a living, but all I'm saying is 14 kids. That's insane. That's boomers. You know, boomers had these huge families, so they could double, triple, quadruple dip into the dating mating pool. Snatch up these fertile young women. And that was a big problem. And then, of course, you got the immigration issue, excess males, men over the border, H-1B1 visas, men. You don't need to really struggle to understand that if you keep doing that every year, you bring in an extra excess of 100,000 to a couple 100,000 extra men. You know, within 20, 30 years, you got a disaster on your hand. And this is where we're at right now. I mean, this is how bad it is right now. And the problem is only compounding. So you're seeing now more and more like people dumpster diving for pinup dolls. And it's just like you're going to start seeing more and more celebrities in Hollywood going for girls that are average blue collar chicks that came from an average family, but maybe they're pretty and they got up on Facebook or Tinder or whatever the websites they use it. And they're able to get on there and show off their merchandise. And of course, these men follow them because, you know, that's what men do. And I mean, a celebrity like Ben Affleck or Matt Damon, especially now that they're older, they have very little sexual market value at all. I mean, I think they pretty much are done. I mean, if you're not married and have a family and you're a celebrity, you're pretty much freaking done. And you know, so these good-looking actors of my generation, like the Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, those are Gen Xers. They just simply don't have a chance to they can't do what the older generation did, which those older generations could just plow through women and marriages like it's no tomorrow. But it's the demographic shift is so bad now, and so you're seeing all this dysfunction, and people don't want to talk about it, and hence people get critical of my message and things like that of that nature. But what the demographic situation ultimately means, it means that you're probably going to be in a very bad situation if you are already there right now. This problem will not be resolved in our lifetime. And because it's not going to be resolved in our lifetime, it asks the other question, what do you do? And I would say right now, be in defensive mode, because governments are going to start amping up weird laws. I think that to me, this is at the crux of most issues. I'm not trying to create my own proprietary niche agenda type of thing, but I do believe that at the crux of all of this dysfunction is something very weird and sinister. And I personally just think that this will probably be a problem. It is a problem, and it's going to continue to get worse and worse. It's just the dysfunction. It's just the question is how are future generations of men going to deal with this? And I say, well, I listen to a lot of geopolitical commentary, and I listen to a guy named Ralph. Is his name Hudson? John Hudson. There's a guy named Hudson, and there's another guy named Richard Wolff, and I listen to them, and they talk about how when a society is dying, basically it goes into hyper aggressive mode. I think that's kind of how it's going to be with America and Western countries that have this lopsided demographic ratio. They're going to start getting tougher and tougher, making excuses. But the beautiful thing is that we live in an era now where people realize war is a waste of time, that there's nothing in it for you. You fighting for your country means really nothing. I mean, how do you engage a single dude if there's no woman to? I went into the military back in 90. I was in from 90 to 94, and they treated us like crap even back then. It was like they always grilled us. It was the precursor to what we have as modern day sexual harassment. The military was like 20 years ahead of the game, and they would grill us about talking to a certain female in a certain unit, and don't you talk to them, and they can hit you on charges and all this crap. And it was just, like, okay, so you got these men in the military, you're not promising them a woman, and then you want them to engage in society, or their wife's cheating on them and can get away with it. The military, by the way, does not care if your wife cheats on you. They are the most immoral environment. They don't do anything. In fact, the only thing they do is if you're coming off a ship and your wife is filed for divorce, they grab you by the side and say, you're coming with us. You're not to see him. That's what this one guy in the Navy told me one time. He says when the guys would get off the ship and the wife was committing adultery and or divorcing the guy, they would take him aside. They knew what was going on. They would say, look, this is the situation. Ensign so-and-so or Captain so-and-so or whoever, you're going to have to you're going to have to just accept the fact that your wife is cheating and or leaving you. And you are not to see her. So that's the best they can do. So the military, clearly women waiting for you in another port somewhere. It's just nonsense. It's excess males. Everywhere you go, it's excess dudes, but you don't see the excess dudes because the excess dudes all stay home. They all bottle it up. I had a discussion with a friend of mine the other day, a very close friend from high school that I ran into, and I said to him, we were getting deep in the discussion. I brought up the women issue, and he agreed with it, but he said it's a hard problem to deal with and all this shit. And one of the things that he said was, when we were talking, I says, men like to bottle it up. Oh, I'm so angry, but I'm going to bottle it up. All men just live in this fake world where their wife's cheating and lying, but they never tell anybody because they have to prove how tough they are and masculine they are. And it's really, really a sad situation. So yeah, men have to bottle it up, and then they don't talk to other. And I told him, I says, what we men need to do is we need to start hanging around each other. And I don't know if he thought the idea was gay or not. If I told him, look, I says, there is, if women can have their get-togethers, men should have their get-togethers and talk about female things. But, again, you don't get men to do that because men want to bottle it up and all that other crap. So anyways, enough of that. This is kind of a random. Well, it's not a random. I'm keeping it on the discussion of the demographic situation, the celebrities, and what they're doing and whatnot. But get in shape, by the way. Get in shape too. That's another thing I forgot to mention. Get watch. You know what I've been doing lately? I've been watching a lot of car repair videos. I have been learning so much about cars. Um, I changed the alternator on my vehicle that needed one, and I'm going to be doing the brakes on my other one. I mean, it's just incredible how much you learn. There's so much stuff you can learn. Maybe this is the reason why men haven't rebelled and um, whatever. I don't think there's nothing to rebel against. I mean, if you got a ratio of 5 men, 5 single men to every single woman, there's not much you can rebel against. I mean, you can't make something happen. Like the government, federal government could never make women appear. You know, they kind of know the situation is what it is. And that's why they ignore it. It's easy to ignore it and play the blame game on other people. It's like a get rich quick scheme. You fail at it, but it's your fault. You know, blame yourself. I get it. Every time you fail at a get rich quick scheme, you blame yourself, blame yourself, blame yourself. And that's the man. You know, we are just talking to a guy at work the other day, and we were talking about how the protocol for NFL quarterbacks is when your team loses, you blame yourself. And I said, isn't that funny? A quarterback could be like throw for 5 touchdowns, 450 or 430 yards, and have like a 70% completion ratio. They say it's the manly thing. They even said this on one of these talk shows or these shock jock sports programs one time, that the quarterback needs to take the fall for every time they lose. And your defense, your safeties could be doing a horrible job. Your defensive your defensive players could be doing a horrible job, or they could be on injury reserve or whatever. And it's always blame the quarterback, even when he's done a good job. So yeah, this is just all blame yourself, blame the quarterback, blame yourself, blame yourself. Never mind the fact that the receiver dropped the ball 3 times. Blame yourself. We just didn't step up high. You know, this is what men will try to do, but I don't think I think it's really a stupid thing. And anyways, I'm going to get out of here now. It's August 30th, 2025. It is 9:40 a.m. and it is a Saturday in Northeast Ohio. You guys have a great day. I am going to end this stream now. This is the pre time. In fact, I don't want to interact with too many people on here. It's just a waste.